What if I told you that just 300 warriors stood against an unstoppable army of over 100,000? This was not just a battle, it was a defining moment that shaped the future of Western civilization. In a narrow mountain pass called Thermopylae, 300 Spartans, led by King Leonidas, made a stand so fierce that their sacrifice echoed through millennia. Question: would you fight to defend your freedom, even if death was certain? The ancient world was a complex patchwork of city-states and empires, each with their own ambitions, rivalries, and traditions. Among them, the Persian Empire was the largest and most powerful, stretching from Egypt to India. Its ruler, Xerxes I, was a man obsessed with conquest and domination. Meanwhile, Greece was fragmented. Athens, Sparta, Thebes, and other cities were often at odds, each wary of the other. But the threat from Persia forced these rivals to face a common enemy. And in that moment of crisis, the story of 300 Spartans became the spark that united a continent. Question: what can the courage of a few teach a divided people about unity? Part 1. Persian Empire. A colossus of power. To understand Thermopylae, we must first understand Persia, an empire unlike any before it. Founded by Cyrus the Great, Persia was built on tolerance and administration, but also on overwhelming military might. By Xerxes' time, it had conquered countless lands, ruling millions with a complex bureaucracy and a fearsome army. Xerxes inherited his father Darius's ambition. After the humiliating defeat at Marathon, Xerxes was determined to crush Greece once and for all. He planned an invasion on a scale never before seen. Assembling a force so vast, historians debate its actual size, but estimates range from 100,000 to over 300,000 soldiers. This force included cavalry, archers, infantry, and war elephants. Supported by an enormous fleet, to move his army, Xerxes undertook incredible engineering feats. He built a pontoon bridge across the Hellespont to connect Asia with Europe, and even carved a canal through the isthmus of Mount Athos to allow his fleet safe passage. His goal was clear: conquer Greece and expand the empire's borders to the edge of the known world. Question: what drives a leader to push the limits of human and engineering capacity for war? Part 2. Sparta. A city of warriors. Opposite Persia's colossal army stood Sparta, a society like no other. Unlike Athens, which prized art, philosophy, and democracy, Sparta was a military state. From a young age, Spartan boys were taken from their families to undergo the brutal agoge training system. They were taught to endure pain, hunger, and hardship without complaint. Their entire existence was shaped by discipline, loyalty, and martial excellence. By age 20, a Spartan was a soldier for life, trained to fight in the phalanx, a tight, disciplined formation of overlapping shields and spears. King Leonidas was more than a leader. He was the embodiment of Spartan values: courage, honor, and sacrifice. When Persia invaded, the other Greek city-states hesitated, fearing the overwhelming Persian numbers. Leonidas, however, refused to back down. He gathered 300 of his best warriors, all men who had living heirs, so their families' names would live on, and marched to defend the narrow pass at Thermopylae. Question: what kind of society can train its citizens to accept death as a duty rather than a tragedy? Part 3. Thermopylae. Strategy and Tactics. Thermopylae, meaning hot gates, was a narrow coastal pass with cliffs on one side and the sea on the other, a perfect location for defense. Leonidas knew that the Persian army's numerical advantage would be meaningless in such a tight space. The narrowness of the pass forced the enemy to attack in small numbers, neutralizing their overwhelming strength. The Greeks used the phalanx formation masterfully here, shields locked, spears pointing outward, creating a wall of steel. For 2 days, the Greeks held off wave after wave of Persian attacks. Xerxes sent his elite unit, the Immortals, called so because their numbers were always kept at 10,000, replacing any losses immediately. Despite their reputation, even the Immortals failed to break the Greek line. Xerxes watched, growing furious and impatient. But then a local Greek named Ephialtes betrayed the defenders by revealing a secret mountain path to the Persians, allowing them to outflank the Greeks. Leonidas realized the position was compromised. He dismissed most of the Greek allies, choosing to stay with his Spartans and a small group of loyal Thespians and Thebans, determined to fight to the death. Question: when surrounded and outnumbered, what drives warriors to make a last stand instead of surrender? Part 4. The Final Battle and Sacrifice. On the last day, the Spartans fought with unmatched ferocity. They knew the end was near, but their spirit never wavered. Fighting in tight ranks, they repelled attacks from every direction. Leonidas himself was killed, but the Spartans continued fighting until every man had fallen. Xerxes ordered the bodies desecrated, hoping to break the spirit of the Greeks, but the story of their sacrifice only fueled resistance. The stand at Thermopylae became a symbol of courage and defiance against overwhelming odds. It bought the Greek city-states valuable time to prepare for further battles. Question: How can the sacrifice of a few inspire the freedom of many? Part 5. Aftermath and Greek Unity. The Persian army marched on and burned Athens, which had been evacuated. But the Greek navy, led by Athens, won a decisive victory at the Battle of Salamis. Later, at Plataea, the Greeks united fully and defeated the Persians, ending the invasion. Thermopylae became the rallying cry for Greek unity. The bravery of Leonidas and his men inspired generations. Their legacy influenced not only Greek culture, but also Western ideas about freedom and sacrifice. Question: can the legacy of a lost battle be more powerful than a clear victory? Part 6. Thermopylae in History and Culture. Thermopylae's story survived through ancient historians like Herodotus, who immortalized the Spartans' sacrifice. Over the centuries, the battle inspired artists, writers, and leaders. In modern times, the phrase "Mollen Labe," come and take them, attributed to Leonidas, has become a symbol of resistance. The battle is often cited in military academies as an example of strategic defense against superior forces. But beyond tactics, Thermopylae represents an ideal that courage and sacrifice can define a civilization's soul. Question: what lessons from Thermopylae resonate most in today's world? The Battle of Thermopylae was more than a military engagement. It was a moment when courage confronted overwhelming power, when a handful of men chose honor over life itself. Their story continues to remind us that sometimes the greatest victories come not from winning, but from standing firm in the face of impossible odds. So when you hear about 300 Spartans, remember they weren't just warriors, they were the defining heart of a civilization. Final question: what would you stand for if your legacy depended on it?